Hello, I'm Brenda, and today I'm going to share with you 4 books I have on my reading list. And I want to present them to you in a way so that we can look at how these books can actually teach us something about writing our own memoirs and the process that is involved. Of these 4 books, 2 are memoir, 1 is fictional, and the other one is a how-to book that we can keep as a resource. Let's start with the fictional book. The book I'm introducing you to is The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. What I love about this book is that it is a story written in vignette form. I find that writers are really intrigued by vignettes. In fact, my video on vignettes is the most viewed video on my YouTube channel. However, vignettes are greatly misunderstood. Many think it is just a short form of writing. In the book, The House on Mango Street, many of the chapters are no more than a page or 2. So yes, it is a short form, but it's a particular type, a particular style of short form writing. And you can use vignettes, you can use short form style writing for your memoir like Abigail Thomas does. You can use sketch story, you can use a variety of different forms to write your memoir. Most of them would still probably follow the 3 acts of memoir arc, but the form is different from a traditional style memoir which follows the novel format with regard to the length and structure of chapters. So find a memoir where the form really speaks to you. It's one that appeals to you. Buy the book, make sure you have a hard copy, and then use it to deconstruct what the writer has done and see how you're going to use it then to present your memoir. Right, now the second book has been on my desk for a year. It's been sitting there waiting for me to read it, and I hadn't until just recently. And so I'm presenting it to you again, but I'm not going to go into depth about it because I have done that in a previous video, which I'll link right here. And it is the memoir Confessions by Augustine. This is the very first recorded memoir we have that actually has become the format for how we write our memoirs today. Now, this memoir may not be everybody's cup of tea, but it is mine for 2 reasons. And these are 2 reasons I think can apply to you too in approaching memoir. One is I am obviously intrigued by memoir and history of memoir, and why wouldn't I want to read the very first memoir ever written so that I can learn from it? And so that's something for you to think about too. Where are you going to learn about memoir? How are you going to learn what it is to write a memoir, what you need to know about a memoir, how memoir flows, the different aspects of memoir, how to know what you should know before you even start writing a memoir. It can be in a book or it can be in a course. And so I have a course that can help you with that, help you with everything you really should know before you start writing your memoir. As people who have done my course have said, I wish I had done this course right at the beginning. So I have a link down below for you to take a look if this is something that's going to help you to write your memoir. But we should always be learning. The other reason I have it is because I want to glean from it the spiritual formation aspects that St. Augustine brings to his memoir. And so that's another component to think about when you're writing your memoir, is what nuggets of life are you going to impart in your memoir to the reader, that the reader will say, this memoir is my cup of tea. And that's something that's very, very crucial to your memoir. What is its promise? What is its message? How are you going to impact other people, perhaps even long after you're gone, because of your book, like Augustine? Because it holds eternal truths. Now, book number 3. This book is a real lesson in how to approach writing your memoir. One of the things you want to think about as you start writing your memoir is which other books out there already on the shelf are comparable to the story you are going to write. You want to do this for 2 reasons. One, you want to see how they're dealing with the same subject matter. Again, it becomes a tool for your topic. And 2, you want to see what perspective they take so that you can see where your story fits in, where your story contributes to this conversation on this topic, where you bring a different perspective, maybe a different format in how you're going to present your memoir on the same topic. So I'm going to use book number 3 as an example, and this book is Chosen, a memoir of stolen boyhood by Stephen Mills. The person whom I am helping to write his memoir chose this book because the topic is comparable to his topic, and it is a difficult topic. It is the topic of the sexual abuse of boys and how this unrealized, undealt with trauma plays out in life afterwards. And so this book now becomes a really good tool for my client and for me to look at how Stephen Mills has presented his story, how he has even structured the story, how he is speaking about this topic versus how my client is writing his book and how he is actually presenting his story. They're talking about the same topic, but in their own individual stories and their own individual voice, and even in their own individual style. So for example, Stephen Mills uses a lot of dialogue in the first part of his story. He uses the dialogue to drive his story forward, and it is that part of the story where he becomes groomed and he becomes sexually abused. Whereas the person I'm coaching is a much more descriptive writer, and he uses his words in such a unique way to convey his story his way. And is one better than the other? No, they're different. There are different approaches by different writers talking about similar stories, and they're using their own style to convey their message. So have a look at other stories that are in the same topic as yours. Now, on this particular topic of sexual abuse of young boys, there aren't a lot of memoirs. There aren't a lot of comparable titles because many men do not tell their stories. They keep it very undercover. This is an underutilized, underexposed topic in memoir. So if this is your story and you are considering whether you should write a memoir about your difficulty and your trauma, I'm going to encourage you to do it because we need more voices on this topic. Just from reading my client's material and now reading this book, I can already see commonalities in the grooming process. I can already see how predators work. And when we have material like this, our memoirs actually become social commentaries. And so I'm going to encourage you to do this if it is your story. And the takeaway from Chosen for us as memoir writers is find comparable books to the topic you are writing about and use it as a tool to find your voice that you're going to speak to on this topic, and use it as a tool to see how the other writer has dealt with their topic. Now, the 4th book is a real how-to book, and it was recommended to me by another client. I love that my clients give me recommendations because they see a book and they say, Brenda, I think you're going to love this book. Or Brenda, this book deals with this topic. I'd love to get your perspective on it. The minute I saw this book, I thought this is one I want to have, and I want to look at it because I think it's going to help a lot of memoir writers. And it's a how-to book on editing. And it's called 7 Drafts, or 7 Drafts, as I would say. Self-edit like a pro from blank page to book. What I love most about this book straight off the bat, which is why I grabbed it, is its title, 7 Drafts. Allison K. Williams is throwing wide open this topic that it is going to take multiple drafts to get your polished manuscript. Many people think that their first draft is their finished draft. And if you're writing one draft thinking that you've got to get it perfect so that when you're finished, it's finished, it is not going to be your reality. And so as writers, we need to embrace that we are going to go through multiple edits. We're first going to get our story on the page. That is the first draft in whatever form you get. And don't shoot for perfection because the multiple draft edits will help you to hone your manuscript. After that, we need to look at structure. That is integral to the next draft of your memoir. Do you have a solid structure? Allison K. Williams calls it the story draft. Then we need to look at the character draft. Is your character developing correctly? Is there this transformation that we're looking for? Then, of course, the one we're all familiar with is the technical draft. Do we have scenes? Do we have dialogue? What is the structure within the actual story that we're going to look at? Then there's the personal copy edit, where we're going to look at punctuation. Then you send it out to your beta readers, and your beta readers will guide your next edit. And after that, it is ready to go to an editor, which now becomes another edit. And there are your 7 edits. I do recommend this book from what I've seen so far. It's not going to be a deep dive into editing, but I think for most of us, for where we're at in writing our memoir, it's going to be a really handy tool to have on the desk. So those are my 4 books I have on my reading list, I have on my desk, that I use as tools in approaching writing memoir and helping others to write their memoir. Find books and memoirs that you can use as tools too. And don't forget, I recommend my course too, because I do believe it can help you. As one participant said, I had done other courses, but yours really put my feet to the fire. So if I don't see you in my course or in my mentoring group just yet, I will see you in the next video.